everyone, this is weavercast. Weavercast is a weekly podcast that we go over tips and tricks for Rapid Weaver and web design. I am Joe Workman, your host. I am an independent Mac and web developer based in the San Francisco Bay Area. Today, it is show number 21. It is Tuesday, February 25th, 2014, and weavercast is never longer than 15 minutes, so let's get started. So, I actually recorded show 20 yesterday, and as I was editing it, I realized that it was a huge, just big old fire hose, right? And I was just like pumping data out. So I decided, because I talked so much and that the data was just so in your face so much, that I would split it up into two shows. So plus I talked for like 20, 30 minutes and I tried to edit it down, couldn't. So to keep true to our 15 minutes, I split it up into two. And now we have two 10-minute shows. I think that's really great because I assume like after 10 minutes of all the stuff I was going over and firing at you, your eyes would just gloss over, right? So it's good that we split it up. So I'm not really going to go over what htaccess file is. Please watch show 20 first. None of the contents here really relies on show 20 unless you don't know what an htaccess file is. So you probably want to watch show 20 first and then move on to show 21 after you've had a cup of coffee after you watch show 20. So without further ado, let's jump into the tutorials. Okay, now here's another tip that deals with performance, and this has to do with caching and expires. Now, inside Rapid Weaver, and if you're just hand coding things, you do know that you can provide expire headers on each web page individually. Now, a lot of times we forget to do that. I myself never do it. I always forget. So doing it in the htaccess level is a great way because you can actually do it across all of the files on your site centrally. By default, basically what we do is we make sure that expires active is on. So we actually enable this feature. Now, this next one is kind of controversial. Some people have it, some people don't. What this does is it sets a default expire date for every file on your web server. Then basically that requires, if you want to change from the default, that you explicitly say so in this configuration file. Now, a lot of people say that maybe not providing a default at all is the best way, because then it just takes the default mentality of always get the latest. But it's there if you deem that a default would be good. If we look at the syntax here for the rest, we have expires by type, and then we have what's called the mem type of a file, or the type of file that is going to be accessed for this rule. So we have a text CSS, there's application JSON, text XML. These are called mem types. So if you want to look for a particular mem type, make sure that I should have inside this example all the possible mem types that you would want. So definitely look at that. So we do expire by type, and then you can actually then define the type of file. And then here is access plus 1 year we see in the CSS example. And what that says is access time, which is the date that the user hits that web page. So it's telling the browser, you can cache this CSS file for 1 year. Now this may be a little, conservative. I think 1 year is probably a little much because we're updating our websites a little more frequently than once a year. Okay. So this is telling the web browser that they're able to cache the CSS file for up to a year. Then at that point, it will force it to be re-downloaded. As you see, there are all kinds of other things. You can do images, you can do, font files. Now, a lot of times font files are not going to change. So you can definitely cache those. We saw in the previous example something called a mime type. What this is it defines the type of file and ties that to an extension. So for example, let's say video MPEG-4. So here we have add type video/MP4. And if we ever have a file called .mp4 or with a .m4v, it's going to tell the browser that this file is a type of video MP4. If the web server does not serve up a file with a proper mem type, it won't be interpreted properly by the browser. So for video, that means maybe the video won't get played because maybe it thinks it's a .movie file, or if it's an audio, maybe it thinks it's a .mp3 file instead of a video file. So there are a lot of times where hosts do not properly have every possible page extension defined. So if you do have some issues where maybe a font that you've tried to load isn't working, or a video that you've loaded or a MP3 file that you've loaded doesn't quite work properly, it could definitely be a MIME type issue, and you might need to add some of these lines into your htaccess file. So this is a quick rule that allows you to stop users from being able to embed your images that are hosted on your website on other domains. Now, this next rule isn't really going to apply to a lot of people. This is if you're using HTTPS on your web browser or on your web server, and you want users, if they actually go to http:// your domain, you want them to automatically redirect to HTTPS. This is how you would do that. Now, kind of a similar rule that we just saw. Let's say if you go to www.joeworkman.net right now, you'll get redirected. Basically, the www gets stripped off. This is essentially a way of accomplishing that in your htaccess file, where you can put in your domain, www.yourdomain.com, and then redirect that to be, http: your domain. So basically, you're stripping off the www. So really simple thing. You're going to have to change the domain, but easy, good to know. Now, in the last couple examples, we looked at some things that redirected and restructured the URL. Those use something called a URL rewrite. And here are some more complex situations on this, where instead of removing HTTPS, we're actually restructuring how URLs are defined. Now, I use this, and this is documented for my Tumblr stack, and we see examples of that here, where if a user had gone to /blog/index.php/post- and then some digits, I rewrite that rule to be /blog/index.php $ID equals, and then $1 is what is used is what is placed from these parentheses. So it's a way of making some URLs prettier. It's another way of doing more generic, broad URL rewrites. For example, the second example here, in my really old, a few years ago, my URLs were drastically different than they are now. I had joework.net/product/product name. And when I redid my website and had my new URL structure, which is joework.net/rapidweaver/stacks/product name, I wanted just a really quick and simple way where, people weren't getting 404s if they went to an old product page. So what I did was, if you go to joeworkman.net/products/anything, which is a .star, this uses regular expressions, it'll basically redirect them with a 301 redirect to /rapidweaver on my site. Now, if you do notice, a lot of these rules use regular expressions. I'm not going to go over all the intricacies of what a regular expression is here. Definitely do some research, maybe search from Stack Overflow or Google various examples of what you potentially would want. But some generics here. Caret is the beginning of a line. $ is the end of a URL. Anything that is in parentheses will be assigned to a variable. So here we have parentheses, and everything inside of that gets assigned to $1. .star is a way of saying anything, okay? So any character. It could be slashes, spaces, anything. .star matches anything. And then, so that's that. That is the last htaccess rule. Let's jump into some robot.txt files. So robot.txt files, it is, like I said earlier, it is simply a text file that you add to the root of your web server. the name is explicitly going to be robots.txt. And search engines look for this file, and they will abide by the rules that you define within this file. So the first line of a robots.txt file is going to be user agent star. Now, you could, if you like, actually target specific search engines and give rules for specific search engines. And by doing that, you can do user agent : Google or Bing or something else, right? I don't really recommend that. I don't know of any great use cases for doing that because pretty much I think most of our problem is actually getting found by search engines, not restricting specific search engines from finding us. So most of the time you're going to do user agent star, and that will affect so the rules that we're defining here will affect every single search engine that finds your site. Then essentially is some disallow commands where you can say, search engine, do not find or source anything inside /temp or /junk in this example here that we see in this file. And there are no regular expressions allowed here. It is simply statically defining the exact folders that you do not want your search engines to search. And that's basically it. The robots.txt file, as you see here, is really simple. You say all search engines, and then you define folders that you do not want the search engines to source, and they won't go in and look at anything inside there. And that's it. For more information, check out robotstxt.org, and they have a few more examples and whatnot for you, but this is going to serve you 99.9% of the time. So good luck, everybody. Thanks. Well, that's a wrap, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this two-part series on htaccess files and robot files. Really some great stuff in here. I hope you take the time to play around with it, and I hope it wasn't too much for you. Definitely take reference to, the files. So look at the snippet share that I pointed to in show 20 on GitHub. And I'll probably just throw an access file that we saw all the tips in the show notes as well, so that if you don't want to, join the snippet share, you'll still have access to all that stuff. So make sure you check out the show notes for links and everything of all the sample snippets that we've seen here today. So as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you could reach me on all the various internets at Joe Workman on Twitter and app.net. You can send us an email at support@joeworkman.net. So please, give us your ideas. Tell us what you want to learn. My list is starting to get a little bit shorter, so please go ahead and tell me what you want to know so that I can teach you. And as always, make sure you go to joeworkman.net and check out my awesome products. They make this great podcast free for everybody. So if you enjoy it, go check out my products and pick up a couple. So thank you very much, everyone. I hope you have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.